Hello again, and welcome to another video. In this video I'm going to fabricate some hose pipes for the back of my Elan. So when I was removing the suspension, I broke a couple of them because the nuts were seized into the copper, and as twisting the nuts twisted the copper, broke them, and they're all broken. So I just need to fabricate new ones because it's easy and it's a lot cheaper than buying it from somewhere else. What I've done is I just bought this conifer pipe, which is the standard that everyone uses these days, and it's 25 feet long, which I have no clue how many meters it is, but it's plenty enough to do a whole car, I reckon. And I'm just going to bend it using techniques that are fairly common, and you can see them everywhere on YouTube, and flare it and put everything together. I'm not even going to use the old pipes as a reference or anything. I'm just going to look at the suspension alignment and everything and guide these new pipes through it. So I'm going to show you the end result because I've already done one side of the car, and then I'm going to show you how I'm going to do the opposite side. So this is the end result as it stands on the opposite side of the car. And as you can see, just have a pipe, comes out of here, turns around, goes a little bit low, follows up, it clips into the correct place where it's supposed to be clipped, comes around, and then straight into there. And as you can see, the pipe alignment is cleared off of anything else that is a moving part. It's cleared off from the anti-roll bar, it's cleared off from the swinging movement of the suspension. All I'm going to do is to take measurements, and this is just by quickly looking over, actually. So I just need to do a 90-degree turn in there, and then here I've calculated that it's roughly 4 centimeters, and then I have this bent down and then bent straight backwards, which I don't even need to measure because it's just two bends all together, one with the other. And then it's a roughly 7 centimeters around here. Then another 4 centimeters up and another bend, and then here I have it written down what it is, so we'll just have a look at what I've written down. So here's my notes. So the first tube coming out, 4 centimeters, just to give enough clearance to flare it and everything. Then 8 centimeters. Then I have this coils here just to tell me that now I need to twist it down and then turn. Do another 40 centimeters, then a coil in the opposite direction, tell me to twist it up and towards this side, so back to the same side that the first connection was, and then 15 centimeters all the way there. So this is just a rough drawing, and it's enough just with this and looking at things and trying to align them and double checking, and it's enough to actually make something that will fit the car. This pipe is very malleable, but it also work hardened, so you don't want to twist it more than twice. So what I had to do is that I got one bend wrong, I just unbent it and then I did the bend in the correct place and everything was fine. So try to get it right the first time, but you have a bit of leeway. Either way, for 10 quid you get enough piping to try this 5 times if you need to, so really you'll always be fine. So let's just get started with this, do all of the bends, and I'll show you how my process. So I've taken a few measurements already, and since I've got 4 plus 8 plus a tiny bit plus 40 plus 15, these are already rounded up by just putting the tape measure next to the areas and getting an idea of how long it is and giving it a centimeter or two more. So very rough measurements, but things will work in the end because the pipe is a little bit bendy and I'm getting more than I need. Luckily I don't need a tight fit, there's plenty of space at the rear. So this is 67 centimeters, which I've already measured here. Hopefully you can see with the camera there. I've got a tape measure here, and I've got a piece of angle iron, and this is a technique that I've seen on YouTube before, where the fellow was just using angle iron to kind of straighten the conifer pipe. I just put the pipe there, start it at the end, and then start pushing against it and unrolling at the same time. And for some magical reason, it just seems to come out perfectly straight. So now I just need to cut the pipe around here. Now, got my guidelines here. What I'm going to do is basically put the camera in the high speed. I'm going to do the first bend at 4 centimeters, and then I'm going to align the pipe with the suspension and confirm the other 8 centimeters. Do the next bend, and basically every single bend that I do will have, I will be checking it in the car just to make sure that I'm getting it quite right, so that I don't do a second bend and then I need to fall back the previous bend because it wasn't sharp enough. First thing I'm going to do is just to flare one end so that I don't need to worry about that one before I start bending, especially because I need to flare the short one and make sure that I got it right before I do a bend there. The opposite end, since I got 15 centimeters, I should be perfectly fine, since I've got actually a bit more than that in the pipe, and this 15 centimeters is more than what I need in the car. So I'll set the camera on time-lapse, and you'll just see my technique. Basically, I just have a pipe flaring tool. I have the spacings, the tool for the 3/16 tubes, the thingy to clamp it, hold onto my vise, and in the end I also have the nail nuts to go in there. So time lapse, and let's get this done. So here I am, just doing a flare on the edge of the brake pipe. As you can see, just pushing it down to press it down, and now releasing it up. Now what happened in this case was actually that I initially didn't have it tight enough, so I was just pushing it down, so I had to then do it again, and this time I used a little bit of oil just to make sure that it would flare through. And as you can see, I'm being more careful in checking it on the side to make sure that it's not being pushed down like before. So the first push is the one that squishes in the copper, and the second push is the one that actually creates the flare, opening it up. And here I am just taking measurements and checking it against the car and starting the bend process. What I've used for the bending was, I believe this was a 12mm socket to give me a certain radius. And I attempted multiple times to use some backing wood plates to get some flat spots from the background, but I couldn't actually get to grip them. So you see me trying to use the wood quite a few times and then always giving up and just going back to using the socket. So as you can see here, you know, my futile attempt, it's rather funny actually looking back. But yeah, so I just given up on that, grab the socket again and just manually bend it around the socket, taking measurements, checking it against the car again. And you see, every bend that I'm doing, I go out of the frame again just to check against the car and try again, just to make sure that I have the correct measurements. Okay, so this is the progress so far. I hope you can see the camera. The brake line is just aligned there. Little bend, another bend, and as it turns out, I have a little bit too much space. Those 4 centimeters were too much, or maybe I did the bend a bit too far, but I can always kind of force it a little bit just to bend it further and then come back into its place. So I've got all of this excess pipe, which if I just flare it at the end, I will have to like bend it a little bit further or not. So I'm gonna do a cut more or less around there, just a couple of centimeters, 2-3 centimeters, and then I'll cut it, and then I'll do the flaring there, and finally I'll just try to put it all together. And here I am again doing another cut and then flaring the brake pipe again, and if you haven't noticed it yet, you'll see soon. Oh, the usual mistake. I forgot to put the nut. Perfect flare, no nut. Thankfully I have plenty of wire left over. You can see that it's not the first time that I do this mistake. I actually think that the flare tools were made thinking that people do this mistake all the time, because that bridge is just the size of the flare. And here I go again, flaring again, but this time with the correct nut. And I even managed to get a bit of a close-up of the action. Okay, so final fitment in the car. Just for demonstration reasons, I don't have the hub installed and I don't have the brake caliper installed, but what I'm going to do is just slot in the brake hose in its bracket and putting the circlip, the retaining clip back in. So now both ends of the piping are secured with their clips. So the only thing now is that it will not fit perfectly. But because there's a bit of flexibility on the pipe, I can actually just slot one end and then finally align everything. You can see the pipe is quite far from the clip, but all I have to do is give it a bit of encouragement to meet the clip, while at the same time I'm just pushing it towards the clip. Then I will just have to push the clip inwards in a minute to hold everything in place. I believe that this is also a wax oil line, so you have that hose there to put wax oil on the inside of the wishbone, which I will do at some other time. I'm just doing the final alignment here, and I believe that this is already going in, which is easier than I expected for this side. I have a pipe that comes, follows the guides, and then comes around. And just like on the opposite side, it's clear of the movement of the sway bar, the anti-roll bar. It's clear of the movement of the hub as well, because the hub can't move much further back. Well, the hub's shape itself actually steers away from it. So even if I had this going across this line and then back in, it would have been clear, but this is as clear as it can be. And it's fitted now. All that I have to do is put the rest of the brakes back in and then start bleeding. Well, I guess that's it for this video. So now I have brake lines on the substitution brake lines on the suspension on the rear. If you're doing this job, when you double flare, you first use the tap going down and then you open up the flare. Don't do the mistake that I did the first time in the other side, which was to open up the flare and then squish it, because that didn't work out. Another thing to keep in mind is that when you're flaring, make sure you put the nut in, as you saw in the video. Even after having done a mistake on the opposite side, I did the mistake again on this side. But it's a fairly straightforward job, yeah. I'm just going to progress and get this car back on the road as soon as possible. So I'll see you in the next video.